For today's video, I'll be sharing my Amano shrimp care guide along with my experiences from keeping Amanos in my aquariums for the past 2 years. These little guys are widely considered to be one of, if not the best algae eater in the hobby, causing Amano shrimp to become more popular than ever, and for good reason, so hopefully this video will help you offer yours the best care possible. So let's start with the appearance of Amano shrimp, because most people are familiar with their standard look of a fairly plain and bland pattern compared to the more colourful varieties of Caridina or Neocaridina shrimp. But the reason that I wanted to start with their appearance is because Amanos can sometimes appear more colourful than usual, especially after a recent moult. I personally think it's something to do with their fresh carapace temporarily reacting to elements in the water, causing a brief colour shift. Over the years, I've seen mine take on shades of blue, brown, orange and even a pale red, but these colours only ever last for a couple of days. So if you ever see a brightly coloured Amano shrimp in one of your local shops, don't buy it at a premium because these colours will simply fade. Now, typical Amano shrimp can develop a slightly brown or greenish tint, but I do personally think that this is just because of their diet and the things that they've recently eaten. Now, there is a selectively bred variety called the Snow Amano Shrimp, and Chris Lukhaup has a great video on it which I'll link to in the description. There's currently 2 main lines of these, with one coming from a German breeder and one coming from a Taiwanese breeder. As Chris explains in his video, the ones from the German line tend to revert back to their normal coloration within a couple of months, while the Taiwanese line does seem to hold on to that white coloration for longer. Personally though, I'm completely fine with the normal look of regular Amano shrimp because I keep them for their practical algae eating benefits rather than for decorative purposes, and in all honesty, if you do want a more decorative shrimp, then Neocaridina shrimp like cherries are going to be the perfect option. I also want to quickly touch on how you can tell the difference between male and female Amano shrimp, as there's a few different ways to do it. Generally, female Amanos are larger than the males, and depending on where they are in their breeding cycle, you may be able to see eggs in their ovaries just behind their head or carried in their pleopods. However, most aquarium shops near me tend to sell Amano shrimp when they are still in their juvenile stages, which makes this a difficult way to work out if they are male or female. In my experience, the easiest way to tell is by looking at the pattern along their body. Males have a line of small dots running along the lower part of their body, while females tend to have a line of dashes in place of the smaller dots. But for most people this really doesn't matter, because while Amano shrimp can and do breed in fresh water, like some of the females you'll see in these video clips carrying eggs, the larvae won't actually survive unless they are transferred into brackish water with a higher salinity content. Next up are the recommended water parameters for Amano shrimp, and most sources tend to agree on the following ranges, which are a pH of between 6.5 and 8.0, general hardness of between 4 and 15 dGH, carbonate hardness of between 0 and 10, and a water temperature of between 18 and 28 degrees Celsius, which converts to between 64 and 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Like most aquarium inhabitants, whether it's shrimp, fish, snails or some plants, Amano shrimp are sensitive to ammonia and nitrite in the tank, so that's why it's essential to only add them to a fully cycled aquarium. This means that your filtration method of choice should be able to maintain both ammonia and nitrite levels at 0 ppm before you add the shrimp. In addition to that, there's at least some research that shows at least some species of shrimp can be sensitive to copper in their water. Effects of copper toxicity can start at something as simple as a mild colour change, but get more serious and potentially be even fatal. Because of this, my go-to shrimp breeder here in the United Kingdom recommends waiting a couple of weeks after adding a large batch of aquarium plants to a new tank before you add the shrimp. This just lets any potential copper residue from fertilizers or treatments on the plant dissipate into the water and be removed before you put your shrimp in there. So when compared to a lot of fancy Caridina species that can be a little more difficult to keep, Amano shrimp are quite hardy and easy to care for. On top of this, their preferred water parameters are very similar to that of Neocaridina shrimp like cherry shrimp, which makes them a great choice for beginners and lets you keep both species of shrimp in the same tank like I do. Moving on, and we get to diet and feeding, which is another big reason why Amano shrimp are so popular in the aquarium hobby. As I touched on earlier, Amanos consume a wide range of algae types and they do a great job of passively grazing on algae and biofilm that will naturally grow in your tank. While there are plenty of algae eaters that will handle the softer algae types, I've noticed that Amano shrimp do seem to go after at least some forms of hair algae too. Now it's hard to say for sure since they are so small and I have bad eyesight, but I've personally seen mine pulling strands of hair algae off my hardscape and appearing to eat them. Beyond algae, Amano shrimp are fantastic scavengers that make great members of a cleanup crew. These little guys will happily eat leftover fish food, decaying plant matter and pretty much anything else that they can find in the tank which is a food source, and this helps to keep your aquarium clean and balanced. Personally, I do like to target feed them some treat foods to help ensure that they are getting plenty of nutrition in their diet. In my experience, Amano shrimp really enjoy fluval bug bites, Hikari mini algae wafers, Hikari sinking pellets, shrimp snowflake food, spinach and Indian almond leaves. I've also tried other options too, but right now these make up the bulk of the diet of my Amano shrimp in my aquariums. One of the best things about Amano shrimp is just how flexible they are when it comes to food, and they really will eat just about anything. That does include dead fish, and while this may seem grim, this is actually quite helpful in your aquarium. If a fish dies and you don't remove it quickly because you didn't notice it was dead, the Amano shrimp will quickly eat it and break it down and consume that mass as energy and convert it into shrimp waste, which will release a lot less ammonia than the actual body of the fish. So this helps to reduce the chances of your tank having an ammonia spike and having any potential problems, but cherry shrimp and most species of snail will also happily help do this too. The main takeaway from this section is simple. Amano shrimp eat a lot of algae and they are very easy to feed, so you can target feed them a wide range of foods, making sure they are getting plenty of nutrients in their diet. So moving on, and we get to tank setup, and while Amano shrimp are generally easy to keep, there are a few things that I specifically recommend for them when compared to Neocaridina shrimp. The main one is hiding spots, whether it's rocks, driftwood, live plants, aquarium decorations, or even purpose-built shrimp tubes. In my experience, Amano shrimp tend to appreciate having hiding spots to retreat to in their aquarium. I keep mine in a wide range of different fish tanks, and in every single one of them they will constantly seek out cover, especially when the aquarium lights are turned on. The majority of the clips you're seeing in this video were actually filmed in the first hour or so of my aquarium lights turning on, just so I can make sure I got footage of them. But unlike my Neocaridina shrimp, which are a lot more confident under the light and in the open spaces, my Amano shrimp do tend to hide away or at least stay close to cover once the tank is fully lit. So while you will see them out and about during the day, their activity levels definitely seem to drop off under brighter lighting. Now, all of my tanks are heavily planted and include a good amount of hardscape, so giving them hiding spots is very easy. When it comes to substrate, Amanos really don't seem that fussy in my opinion, and as you can see in these video clips, I keep them on aqua soil without issue. I also keep them in capped dirt substrates and tanks with inert substrates, and in my experience it really doesn't bother the shrimp. So if you are looking to keep things simple, you really don't need to worry about the substrate that you are keeping them on. Even though aqua soils will slightly reduce your tank's pH, the Amanos just seem to get on with it. So moving on, and we get to tank size, and while a lot of sources recommend a minimum tank size of 10 US gallons for Amano shrimp, I've personally kept them in 25 litre tanks, which are around 6.6 US gallons without issue. As long as you have safe and stable water parameters and you supplement their diet with a couple of treats and provide hiding spots, Amano shrimp seem perfectly happy. From what I've seen, the behaviour of my Amano shrimp really doesn't change from my small 25 litre or 6.6 US gallon tanks all the way through the ranges of tank size that I keep them in, up to my 150 litre or 40 US gallon tank. They basically do the same thing constantly. It is important to remember that shrimp aren't like fish and they don't need open areas with horizontal swim space. What shrimp prefer is areas to graze on algae and biofilm. So as long as your setup has the surface area required for the shrimp to graze on algae and biofilm, they just crack on and do their thing. Moving on, and we get to stocking, and for most people, Amano shrimp are added to an aquarium specifically for their ability to eat large amounts of algae. Thankfully, two well-respected voices in the aquascaping community have shared their advice on stocking Amano shrimp for optimal algae control. Green Aqua have a video going over different algae eaters, and they recommend 1 Amano shrimp per 5 litres of water based on their experience with high-end aquascapes. Then we have George Farmer, who suggests a slightly more conservative approach, recommending 1 Amano shrimp per 8 litres of water in his book when talking about algae eaters. Personally, I do take a slightly different approach, and I usually stock my Amano shrimp at a rate of 1 per 15 to 20 litres, and I let my Neocaridina shrimp population grow to the capacity of the tank. This lets the Neocaridina shrimp focus on the soft algae types in the tank and encourage the Amano shrimp to go for the stubborn algae types that the Neocaridina won't touch. I also want to quickly go over how to acclimate Amano shrimp to your aquarium. I know some people who skip this step and don't run into problems, but personally I always take the time to acclimate my shrimp to my tanks. This is mainly because my water parameters are very different from where I buy my shrimp, so I just prefer that extra safety net to try and ensure there's no problems. Now there are a few different ways to do this, but they all follow the same basic idea. You start by placing your Amano shrimp in a container with the water that they were shipped in. Then you use something like a drip tube or a pipette or a different method to transfer water from the tank they will be living in to the actual container that they are currently in with the water that they came shipped with. This gradually introduces the shrimp to your tank's water parameters and reduces the risk of any shock. Now there's no exact rule for when this process is actually done, since it depends on how different your water is from where you got the shrimp. In my case, I buy my shrimp from someone with hard water, while my water is quite soft, so I usually take a couple of hours to acclimate them before adding them to the tank. Finally, I want to go over tank mates for Amano shrimp, and personally, I really do think that they'll be perfectly fine with any peaceful, community-friendly tank species. In my 40-gallon tank, for example, my Amanos share the space with Corydoras, honey gourami, neon tetras, cardinal tetras, harlequin rasboras, chili rasboras, a Siamese algae eater, nerite snails, and cherry shrimp. I also keep Amanos in my 29-gallon tank with Medaka, another 29-gallon tank with zebra danios, a 12-gallon with white clouds, and even an 8-gallon with a betta. In the past, I've also kept them with guppies, endlers, pearl gourami, and ram's horn snails too. Now, I have occasionally seen Amano shrimp push Neocaridina shrimp off food that they want, but I've never seen any real aggression. So, as long as the fish or other tank mate you plan to keep in the tank with your Amanos, leave them alone to do the thing, I'm sure they'll return the favour. Anyway guys, that brings the video to an end, and Amano shrimp are a great addition to most aquariums, and they are surprisingly easy to keep while being great cleanup crew members. Thanks for watching the video, have a good day and good luck with your Amano shrimp.